It's a Sunday evening just after 6 o'clock, and that means it's election debate time here on SABC 1, SABC News Channel 404, SABC News Online, as well as SAFM. Tonight we're coming to you live from the University of Limpopo, and that is where we are discussing the issue of the land question, as many people prefer to refer to it. We've got several parties up here who are going to debate this issue in greater detail. But before I introduce them to you, let's have a look at this insert prepared for us by Tumisho Mashaba.
Awakening on Friday morning, June 20, 1913, the South African native found himself not actually a slave, but a pariah in the land of his birth. Saul Blakey couldn't have been more succinct in his assessment of the Natives Land Act of 1913 than when he wrote those words. Passed over 101 years ago, the Act essentially prohibited black people in South Africa from owning land outside of the reserved areas, which were later converted to Bantustans and then homelands in the apartheid years. In the beginning, the Act allocated only 7% of the land to black people, while over 80% of the land was given to white people. The Natives Land Act was the first piece of segregational legislation that was passed by the Union Parliament, and it remained a cornerstone of apartheid until the 1990s, when it was replaced by the policy of land restitution. The new government had to strike a balance between nation building and reversing a centuries-old legacy of land disposition. So a willing seller, willing buyer approach was adopted as the preferred method of land reform.
Why is the government not a willing seller? It already owns enough land to bring about the full transformation it wants. It should simply be giving or selling that land away. In its own earlier green paper, I think it was in about the late 90s, it said that the government owned massive amounts of what it called superfluous land, and that still remains the case. So it should be a willing seller or giver to start with.
Other factors contributing to the slow process of land reform are that most claimants tend to choose financial compensation over land restoration, and in some cases the land that has been expropriated ends up being agriculturally unproductive.
If you select people who are not really capable or really farmers, then it brings a challenge of taking long time you'll have to train them, you'll have to guide them, motivate them to understand what it takes to be a farmer or to use the land, because really it's a big challenge.
In his 2013 State of the Nation address, Jacob Zuma said government was considering reopening the process of lodging land claims for the benefit of those who did not lodge claims by the 31 of December 1998 deadline. This was to accommodate claims lodged by descendants of the Khoi and San communities who were dispossessed before 1913. He also said that government was abandoning the willing buyer, willing seller principle in pursuit of the just and equitable principle for compensation as set out in the Constitution.
If it's a market price, a fair market price. If it's a price that relates to public interest, it's a price that's based on a just and equitable principle in the Constitution.
A recent audit of agricultural land in South Africa by the Department of Land Reform and Rural Development shows that the state owns 22% of the land, while 78% is privately owned. A breakdown of who owns the private land in terms of nationality and race is still outstanding.
That been said by Tumisho Mashaba. Well, let's give the parties a chance now to make their opening remarks, starting with the ANC's Mr. Gugile Nkwinti.
Thanks, Will. Land shall be shared among those who work it, the Freedom Charter. That's a basis for ANC policy. So the statement which is made by the President is based on this framework. Secondly, 1913 Natives Land Act, reopening of land claims, Parliament has approved that. So we're waiting for the President to sign that into law. We would like to have it start on the 1st of July this year. And thirdly, willing buyer, willing seller model, which the President refers to here. Again, Parliament has passed the law, Land Valuation Bill. Now we're expecting the President to sign that into law. That will make land affordable for the state to enter the market in the public interest. That's what our policy is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gugi Lenkwinti, representing the African National Congress. Well, to state the PAC's case, we have Mr. Narias Moloto. You have a minute, sir.
Thank you. PAC believe the struggle, central to our struggle has been the question of land. And question to the freedom is the question of land as well. Insofar as PAC is concerned, the land is not yet been liberated. You can't liberate people and leave the land back. So the people of this country are not yet free because their land is not free.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moloto is representing the Pan-Africanist Congress. To give us the EFF's opening remarks on this debate is Mr. Andile Mnatamo.
To understand South Africa, we have to understand the land question. Today, black people remain landless. We suffer racism, we suffer white arrogance because of the original question of land dispossession in 1652, including the genocide against the Khoisan people. There's no way we can have democracy, we can move forward without addressing this historical question. We remain, in other words, a powerless majority in our own country because we have not dealt with this issue. We want to take forward the struggle of those who struggled before us, including the young people of that followed Robert Sobukwe, Steve Biko, Chrisani, because they died so that we can have dignity. There is no dignity in landlessness. We want to expropriate this land without paying for it because it's stolen property. The ANC, our government here, has been buying this land. In other words, it is being supporting illegality because that land belongs to black people.
Thank you very much. Mr. Andile Mnatama is, of course, representing the economic freedom fighters. Let's hear now from Dr. Pieter Groenewald, who is, of course, representing the Freedom Front Plus. You have a minute, sir.
Goeienaand vir jou. Firstly, the Freedom Front Plus say that land is a very emotional issue and it must not be misused for election campaigning because then we are not going to have any progress. Secondly, we are opposed to reopening of land claims in terms of restitution. It's going to create uncertainty and it is going to be a threat for food security in South Africa. Thirdly, we say that we support the principle of willing buyer, willing seller. Fourthly, we say that those land already being redistributed must first become successes. And the minister himself admitted that 90% of them are failures. And lastly, we must use state land if we want to redistribute.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pieter Groenewald, representing the Freedom Front Plus. Well, tonight's debate is, of course, brought to you by SABC News in partnership with the University of Limpopo. Now, this university has done quite some work in this area, and here to talk to us or to try and help us make sense of what the political parties will be saying is, of course, Advocate Lufuno Nevondwe, who is from the University of Limpopo. Sir, you've heard what these political parties have to say around this issue in our opening remarks. What do you think?
Yes, in my opening remarks, Section 25 of the Constitution is very much clear on how a land must be distributed to those whom it has been dispossessed of them. To me, there is a slow progress in terms of land reform since 1994. 10% of people have got the land. But to me, Section 25 is very clear. It gives government more powers to distribute the land, even forcibly. But when they distribute that land, of course, it must be in the interest of the public, and it must be for public purpose. Of course, it must be done with reward, and it must be equitable. But to me, what I've observed is that legislations are there, policies are there, but the government is not exercising its more powers, because they have more powers to expropriate this land, even forcibly, as long as it is in the interest of the public. But they need to, the question will be, is the interest of minority wage far better than the interest of the public? To me, the public interest is much important, and the government must exercise its power. Is there. they must interpret Section 25 very clearly and try to speed up the issue of land. They must just exercise their powers. They are not exercising their powers at this moment.
Well, we are, of course, going to interrogate all the statements made here by the parties, but also by our partners. This debate is brought to you by SABC News in partnership with the University of Limpopo, as well as the University of Johannesburg. We'll be coming back after this break to begin this debate in earnest. Don't go away.
There's a champion in all men. They have skill and courage. They have power. They have spirit. And they deserve their reward. Carling Black Label. Champion men deserve champion beer.
Change. It's something I see every day on children's faces. It never ceases to amaze me what a difference a free cup of soup can make where it's really needed. More than 14 million cups. That's how many we've served since we began. We know that it's also our responsibility to help create a positive change in our country. That's why we'll keep helping where we can through our ShopRite Community Network.
This is for the ones that steal wool and make fireworks. The ones who hold a bank in their hand 24/7 with any type of cell phone just by dialing *120*321# and know that cell phone banking subscription is free. Switch to FNB Smart Banking.
Amambazo, the musical production. The show will be at State Theatre in Pretoria from the 17th of April to the 11th of May. Tickets available at CompuTicket.
Clientele's new Hospital Plus plan pays out up to 200,000 Rand cash per year. We pay per stay, up to 20,000 Rand cash per hospital stay, plus daily cash for stays over 10 days. It's affordable. Plans start from 99 Rand per month. Annual hospital cover of up to 200,000 Rands, plus additional cover for accidental death, disability, and dread disease. SMS cover to 31045 and we'll call you back.
Stop dumb ways to diet. Rather eat a Provita. Provita is so tasty, crispy and light. It's high in fiber, low GI and less than 100 calories per serving. Provita, best baked by bakers. Win your share of 500,000 Rand in cash and prizes. See pack for details.
High in omega-3 so you can be mega.
Well, if you've just joined us, whether it's on SABC 1, SABC News Channel 404, SAFM, or SABC News Online, welcome to this evening's debate on land, brought to you by SABC News in partnership with the universities of Limpopo and Johannesburg. You can, of course, form part of tonight's discussion by sending us an email to elections@sabc.co.za, elections@sabc.co.za, or you can SMS to 33726, that number again, 33726. You begin with your message with the word vote, and calls are charged at R1.50. Mr. Ngwinti, a direct, shall we say, accusation that even though your party has powers, you're simply not using it, and you are hell-bent on pacifying the white minority.
No, the professor is right in saying that Section 25 of the Constitution has not been used to the full. He's correct on that. I've just said that we have got a bill before Parliament that's been passed by Parliament, Property Evaluation Bill. That is to be signed into law by the President. That's exactly what he's talking about. We've done that now. We acknowledge that it wasn't there before. It's going to establish an office of the Valuer General for the first time in the country to ensure that land is affordable to the state when it acts in the interest of the public.
Is it going to solve all the problems you have identified so far? Is the act going to resolve the problems you've identified so far?
Yes. Remember that the 1975 Expropriation Act uses only the willing buyer, willing seller model, which is a market-based model, only. Now, that is why that act is not used by the government now. We're busy developing a bill now on expropriation. The reason being that in the Constitution, it's not only talking about the market, the willing buyer, willing seller, or the market mechanism. It talks about what is the history of acquisition of the land, how much has the state put into that land, what is that land used for today, and taking that all in together. It gives you a good sense of how much money has been used by the state, which is deductible from the valuation price that is given by valuers. So that all of that is a package, not just one. That's why this replaces the willing buyer, willing seller model.
Well, Mr. Narias Moloto, your party, if there's one thing that the Pan-Africanist Congress is known for, it is your stance on the land question. But if you were to put a plan in place, what would it look like? What would it address? And how different really would it be from what the African National Congress has been doing over the past 20 years?
Thank you. The PAC believe that the land question is a political question. It's not a legal question. Now, you cannot, it has been taken politically. And it's not only, now, what has gone wrong into our politics of land is when the property clause was inserted into our constitution, therefore extending the intention and the spirit of the 1913 Land Act. So it continued a dispossession of the African people. The government is held at hostage. There's absolutely nothing that they can do.
What could they have done?
The first thing we must remove the property clause from our constitution. We must redistribute the land. Land is fundamental to the life of everybody. Land is God-given to the African people. To make life, to develop people economically, but to develop people socially, you require land. Without land, you absolutely do nothing. Now, the government is talking about willing buyer, willing seller. They are taking the taxpayers' money, the poor people's money, to buy land. We do not believe they have a mandate to go and take the taxpayers' of money to buy their own land. There's no price of this land that we are aware. Who has bought this land in our country from who? For how much? We don't know.
So now, they should take the land without compensation.
What the PAC will do, if voted into power, and we believe that these elections of 2014 are about the land. Because the land will unlock the wealth and the economic development and the social development of our people. without it. Now, therefore, if the PAC is voted into power, it will address. First, we'll have to remove the property clause.
Okay, let's give other panelists a chance. Dr. Groenewald, you've been itching there to say something from the time you heard Mr. Nkwinti talking.
Let me first say that it is a myth to think that if you own land, you will become rich. If you own land, you will have to work. And it is hard work to ensure that. We must remember that 35,000 commercial farmers in South Africa produces 95% of the food in South Africa. And I just want to say, if the PAC thinks and the EFF thinks that they can just take away the land, they're in for a hell of a surprise. Because I want to say it quite clearly. To keep on saying that the whites have stolen the land of this country must stop now. Or else we can say, but the blacks have stolen the land from the Khoi and the Stan. We have to look at the history of South Africa. And that's why I said in the beginning that if we want to discuss the land issue, we must become rationalized. It is true what the minister said. Certain bills had been passed through Parliament. Although we in the Freedom Front Plus does not believe that that is the correct bills. We oppose those bills.
Talk to us about the surprise you saying these two parties are in for in the event they were to expropriate without compensation.
Well, the surprise is, do you think that any person who owns land, that they will just give it for anybody just to take? That is going to create conflict in South Africa. I mean, you go to farmers, you go to people who owns the land, and you talk to them, and they say quite clearly, nobody will just take my land. I paid for it. I worked those land. And if we want to solve the issue of land in South Africa, we will have to understand history in this country. And the minister has explained it quite well at a certain stage. Understand your history before you want to talk about taking the land.
Thank you very much, Dr. Groenewald from the Freedom Front Plus. Well, the EFF is obviously feeling strongly about compensation, expropriation without compensation.
Now, firstly, let's make it clear that we are not going to enter into debates with people who are beneficiaries of land theft. We are not going to have a big debate about that. What is shameful, what is, in my view, also sad, is that 20 years into democracy, we are debating and being threatened by those who stole our land. And the ANC government being given mandate over and over again to transform society and to return land has not done so. In other words, what is happening here, we are allowing racism and white supremacy to continue on the basis of our landlessness by those who stole our land. There is no basis whatsoever to buy back land. And the minister is being economical with the truth. He is not telling the nation the truth. There is no policy or land to expropriate land in this country by the ANC without compensation. He says, listen to him carefully. He says they want to make land affordable. They want to make land, in other words, they still want to buy back this land, which is stolen property. It is immoral, it is economically, doesn't make sense, it is politically unacceptable that because if we don't take this land back, and it is symbolically important too, that this land is returned without paying a cent. White people, if they want to be here with us, they will also queue and ask for land, and they shall be given by the indigenous majority so that we can have a new society. But we are not going to buy our land, it's already stolen property.
Thank you very much. Well, there you've heard it, all political parties making. To our viewers at home, thank you for your messages, and do keep on sending them. Let's have a look now at some of the tweets that some of you have sent through already. Well, Siakolwa Mpongoma says, more Africans should be encouraged to study agriculture to ensure food security. Let's have a look at another tweet now. Mildred Peha says, land ownership is not only about farming. So what people will do with land afterwards is not an issue. Pule Makhatle says, let's not be stereotyped when talking about land. It does not mean only farms. We must own sites in townships. Okay, those are some of the tweets that some of you have sent through. Do keep them coming. For now, though, we're going to take another quick ad break. We'll be back right after this.
The following party election broadcast is brought to you in terms of the ICASA regulations governing the election period. The views expressed in this party election broadcast are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
The African Christian Democratic Party brings to South Africa hope for a strong, healthy and prosperous nation. Protection of family life, care for the poor and integrity are needed now in our beautiful country. The ACDP protects women, children and the elderly and is a voice for the voiceless. The ACDP has taken a strong stand against corruption and inequality. Let's build a safe, prosperous South Africa. Vote ACDP, your hope for a great future.
This party election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the ICASA regulations governing the election period. The views expressed in this party election broadcast are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
When Vuyo says we're going to take...
Welcome back. This is a live debate brought to you by SABC News in partnership with the universities of Johannesburg and Limpopo. And tonight we are talking about the land question. Well, Mr. Ngwindi, let me get straight to you and give you time to perhaps respond to what the two parties have are actually criticizing you for. Do you want to respond directly to both Mr. Mngxitama here and Mr. Moloto?
Yes. No. Land shall be shared among those who work it. That is the framework. That is the framework within which land shall be redistributed in the country. We are a constitutional democracy. We are not a banana republic here. Secondly, with regards to removing the property clause in the Constitution, all of us would want to do that overnight if we could. Again, the electorate in South Africa has expressed itself on this matter. The PAC had more than one member at the beginning, 1994. It has got one member now. If South Africans were supporting that policy, the PAC would have been having a lot more members than the ANC today. Okay. With regards to Mr. Groenewald, correctly says 35,000 farmers are producing food for South Africans. That figure has gone down from 68,000. Now it tells you that there is a further concentration of ownership. It cannot be allowed. That is why we are reopening. That is why we have the Office of the Valuer General to deal with this so that we can redistribute land.
Okay, let me ask you to hold your thoughts right there, Mr. Ngwindi, and come to the PAC. If your view was being supported by the majority in this country, you wouldn't have seen your numbers in the National Assembly going down.
The question of numbers of the PAC going down got nothing to do with the land question. It has everything to do with the election money budget. PAC has never used the state resources to run elections. PAC does not have millions and millions to go and put the polls in every town. So PAC is not having little seats simply because of the land question. It is so because it has been not given resources to campaign and to go equally with each and every party. But we are now 20 years into democracy. Why in 20 years of our democracy, people are still poor? The African people, those dispossessed people have nothing. Why do you have still the level of inequality in this country be the worst in the world? Why do you have the highest level of unemployment in this country? Why do we have so many poor people? And yet these poor people, this government is expecting a poor person to buy land.
Okay.
Where is going to get the money to buy land?
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Moloto from the Pan-Africanist Congress. Mr. Mmetama, if I get the minister, or if I hear what he says correctly, he's saying you two are going to go down the PAC route if you are taking this issue, you are approaching this issue the way you are approaching it.
Yeah, but the minister, actually, again, there is a misrepresenting fact here. We have never been asked, the electorate have never been asked to vote on whether we want to buy back our land. I want to challenge the minister. Let's put the matter on the referendum and see the majority of our people, ask them the question, do you want to buy back your land when you are poor, when you do not have money, and you know this land is stolen? So let's put this matter on a referendum and see what the nation says, because this issue has not been tested by the electorate. We believe that we stand on a majority view. Not a single black person. I don't believe there's any single black person or a person who knows something about justice who will say we must buy back our land. I don't believe so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kurkunavak.
Here I want to say, firstly, if you have a referendum and you ask people if you want something for free, everybody will say yes, because everybody wants something for free. But let's get back to a more rational debate, because as far as I'm concerned, the PAC and the EFF, they are irrational, they're not practical, they don't know what they're talking about. Let me come back to what the minister has said. Firstly, the question is, we must understand land reform in South Africa. We have restitution and we have redistribution. Now let's just talk about restitution. If we take the figures from the department, from 94 till the end of 98, we had 80,000 restitution claims in South Africa. There's about 5,000 to 6,000 still outstanding. Now, if we're going to reopen the restitution claims, we're talking about 397,000 claims that will cost the country about 179 billion rand. But the budget is only 3 billion annually. How can we afford it?
But
we
Dr. Groenewald, isn't this a question of you wanting to have your cake and eating it? Because on the one hand, you are choosing from what the minister has to say, the things that suit you, and you are also criticizing these ones. But on the other hand, the majority of our people in this country are arguing that you've got to do something. What is it that the Freedom Front Plus is putting on the table instead of picking and choosing from what you like, from what this party has to say?
What we're putting on the table is as follows. Firstly, we say the Freedom Front Plus would like to see more black commercial farmers in South Africa. That is what we want, because we must ensure food security in this country. We are a country of urbanization. You know, at the moment, more than 60% of our people are living in cities. According to the National Development Plan, in 20 years' time, 70% of the population of South Africa will be urbanized. Who's going to produce the food? So we want more black commercial farmers. And the money we're going to use for restitution should be applied to ensure that upcoming black commercial farmers financially get the support from the government, but we must ensure food security.
Mr. Gwende, do you want to?
No, let us start with the EFF. You know, the EFF is the young kid on the block. Until yesterday, they were adherents of the Freedom Charter. Until yesterday. Their policies are still to be tested. Nobody knows the quality. We hear what they say. But the Freedom Front Plus, its mentality is exactly the same with that of the people who drafted and passed and promulgated 1913 Natives Land Act. They don't listen. They don't listen. You know, John Lagalbalele Dube said then, the white ox has got all the pastures. The black ox has nowhere to graze. I am sorry if I can't make myself clear. He was frustrated by them. So we cannot listen to them because they don't want to listen to anybody but themselves. So very clearly, what South Africans will have to do now is to look at how the ANC has been driving the land question since 1994. Not in terms of the numbers rather not in terms of the policy perspective pronounced by the EFF, which we don't know.
Okay.
All we know is that in South Africa today, nobody can grab land. We know that.
Okay. Let's hear from Advocate Lufuno Navondwe from the University of Limpopo. You heard what the parties had to say. You've just heard the response of the ANC to all of them.
Maybe from the beginning, it's better to understand that the right of access to land is a cornerstone of democracy in South Africa. Without land, there cannot be a true democracy. But however, land cannot be grabbed by anarchy or violence.
Is there an alternative, Advocate?
So this is an emotional issue which needs to be addressed carefully, but while addressing it, it needs to respect national building and social cohesion. But however, the willing buyer, willing seller principle adopted by the Department of Rural Development has failed.
Which it too has admitted.
Yes. That principle has failed because the white minority have used the principle to delay the redistribution of the land.
Advocate, sorry to cut you, but here's what you are opposed to anarchy, which you seem to be suggesting is what these two parties, the EFF and the PAC, stand for. But you're also criticizing the ANC for not moving with all the tools that they have. So is there a middle of the road? What is the alternative?
Yes, my view is that the law is there, the policies are there, the legislation is there. The Constitution, in terms of Section 25, is very clear. It gives government more powers to expropriate the land.
And the government is not using that.
The government is using that power, but not effectively. That's the reasons why we have a slow pace of redistribution of land. We are saying that the interest of minority cannot supersede the interest of the majority. You can expropriate land, but it must be for public purpose and for public interest. And when you do that, you must do that with reward, but you need to balance. You need to be equitable when you do that. That's what we are saying. Government must go to the drawing board. They must use more powers. They have powers. It does not mean that when you expropriate land, you must pay millions of rent. Okay. You can expropriate land and pay 1,000 if it is fair and reasonable in terms of the Constitution.
Thank you very much. Well, Advocate Lufuno Navondwe from our partners, the University of Limpopo. This debate is, of course, brought to you by SABC News in partnership with his university and the University of Johannesburg. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be back right after this.
When the money can't buy experience to see Bafana at home, tour with the Springboks in England, and travel with the Proteas to Australia. Buy your Casalaga and dial your unique code to *120 *8095 *. It all comes together with a castle.
Do you need a funeral policy? Getting a haircut and a shine.
Shop shop.
Or Shisanyama and a car wash.
Shop shop.
And Avbob's cashback funeral policy that gives you cash back every claim-free 5 years.
Shop shop.
That's right. You get your entire 5th year's premiums back in cash. Plus, there are also other great benefits for policyholders that use Avbob's funeral service.
Shop shop.
Avbob, we're here for you. SMS, cover, and your name to 41790.
Stop dumb ways to diet. Rather eat a Provita. Provita is so tasty, crispy, and light. It's high in fiber, low GI, and less than 100 calories per serving. Provita, best baked by bakers. Win your share of 500,000 Rand in cash and prizes. See pack for details.
I-3rd annual Uvukile Gospel Festival ngomhla 20 April uGu Sports and Leisure Center ePort Shepstone. Amatikiti asiyatholakala CompuTicket, Shoprite nase-Checkers ngo-140 elijwayelekile no-500 i-VIP.
Woza eJwayelani uthole okwezinga eliphezulu ngamanani aphansi. Thola u5 kg wamaqolo enkukhu akaJwayelani ngongehlulwe u59.99 kanye namasoseji anezinongo zebeef ngophansi u14.99 ikilo. Sibe no10 kg kashukela iRoyal ngo69.99 kuphela. Uthole u10 kg wempuphu iA Super Maize Meal ngomangazayo u49.99. Jwayelani, taste the difference.
People always ask me why I'm called Mom Feels So Good. Because I always feel so good. To keep them healthy, I give my family Fresh Pep Robots because it feels so good. At the gym, it feels so good. With my girls, when it's hectic, it feels so good. Expressing myself, it feels so good. Feels so good, oh, feels so good. Fresh Pep Robots. Feels so good, oh, feels so good.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you are watching and listening to a debate on the land question in South Africa. This debate brought to you by SABC News in partnership with the universities of Limpopo and Johannesburg. Now, before we go to our guests and take some questions and comments from the floor, let me read you a few SMSs. Laduma Mnyombolo in Kraaifontein says, we must buy our land. Why must we buy our land whereas the Boers took it for free? Stealing is a crime. Stembiso says, let's treasure our constitution and respect efforts by those who were involved in reconciliation talks and handle this land issue accordingly. That's Stembiso. Welsh Makari from Buckley West says, a huge land is still under the minority while we are suffering. The time has arrived to share. Another SMS says, it makes a great deal of sense if government gives back land to people who will utilize it, make it productive by improving their lives through. Some of the SMSs, do keep them coming. Let me read a couple of emails as well. The EFF and PAC should stop fueling tensions among our nation. Yes, the land was wrongfully taken from black South Africans, but we could not just take it. There are many issues involved here, i.e. skills, the economy. We've seen the land given to people who don't use it because they had no skills. That's Mhlalelwa Nzimande. Mvusiwe Kaya Stwecha says, the ANC policy on land is progressive. It's the same policy that is seeing the reopening of land claims. Through constitutional amendments, the ANC will ensure that land prices don't borrow eagle wings. The ANC policy on land makes sure that those who get their land back are given post-settlement support to work the land. Vote ANC and don't waste your vote for this wet behind the ears EFF upstart. That's Mvusiwe Kaya Stwecha. Well, do keep your emails and SMSs and tweets coming. We'll continue to air them. For now, though, let's take some questions and comments from the floor, starting with the ANC.
Thanks very much. My name is Justice Magale, member of ANC, Dr. Beyers Modi branch. To the EFF, to what extent are you able to tell us the lawness of land grab by your manifesto and by your members? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's get a question from the EFF.
Thank you very much. My name is Zex Logodi from Seshego. I just need to know this. This question is directed to the ANC. In 20 years of democracy, the minister has just murdered us with another propaganda, reiterating that our country is not a banana republic. Whereas the question of the land states as such that we expropriate the land without compensation with equal redistribution in use. This means not only the land and the residential areas or the farms, also the minerals within the land. They are on top of the land. It forms part and parcel of the questions that need to be addressed on the land. So, to the minister, what is it that we're going to do?
Can you take a question or comment?
What is it that we're going to do to ensure that land is redistributed equally amongst the South Africans and we benefit the economy of this country? Thank you very much.
Let's get a question, comment from the PAC.
Yeah, you are talking to Palawa Palakatsela, the Secretary of the PAC in the province. I just want to direct this question to the Secretary of the PAC. How long will the PAC take to make sure that the land is returned to the people? Also that in 1948, when the National Party took over, they make sure that they give the farmers the land free. And I would like to know what the PAC, how long is it going to take? Because after 20 years, the government has done nothing. And how long will the PAC take to make sure that the land is returned back to the people? Because as we are sitting now, the minerals of this country are being taken out of this land where they are making a lot of work in those countries.
Thank you very much. Let's get a question or comment from the FF Plus.
Ek is Hannes Heiman van die Vryheidsfront Plus. Ek wil graag weet, as die EFF, okay, tell me, if the EFF grab all the land, will this place, this land, this country be a next Zimbabwe?
Thank you very much. Let's start with that very last question. EFF.
Firstly, to answer to the question about land grabs, it is unfortunate that we call land redistribution land grab. Ourselves as black people, we have lost this land. Today, when we want to take it back and redistribute amongst all of us, including white people, you call it land grab. It shows the extent, therefore, of your resistance yourself to redistributing land so that we can end colonialism and apartheid. As we speak, it's 20 years later. The ANC has bought back only 7% of the land with more about 50 billion rand. You think that is acceptable when our people continue to be landless? It cannot be. Now, that discourse of yours, unfortunately, there seems to be an alliance with this party here. Like the same guy says we're going to grab land. You and these right-wing parties call land redistribution to black people land grab. It seems to me that we have accepted a colonial mentality instead of liberating ourselves and taking this land back.
Okay, next question. The second question, the FF Plus question.
Yeah. I first want to say, you know, if I look at the EFF at my side, he's a very young guy. I want to say that, firstly, he doesn't know what it is to experience tear gas. But he creates the impression that he's this freedom fighter. But they don't even know what tear gas is. If you listen to other people, they know what the struggle is. But let me answer. I want to say,
the tear gas he experienced, he doesn't know.
Firstly, I want to say quite clearly, it is incorrect to blame the willing buyer, willing seller, and it's a poor excuse to blame the failures of land reform on that. Because let me just say this.
Very briefly.
You know that 4% and 5% of all agricultural land annually are on the open market. It is because of corruption and incompetent civil service that it did not work. Even Derek Hanekom admitted he was the first minister for land reform.
Are you accusing the ANC government of being corrupt?
He admitted that if we say that the willing buyer seller principle is a failure, the government must blame itself.
Blame yourself, Mr. Ngwinti.
No,
it's your corrupt administration.
No. You know, I'm sure if you were to look back when the Nationalist Party was in power and they were part of that, the kind of corruption that was there.
Well, incidentally, they
The
are part of
ANC,
your
the
government
just-
even now because
the
his leader
ANC.
is a deputy minister, isn't it?
It is. He is a deputy minister of
So
agriculture.
you're complicit if that administration is corrupt.
You must understand, the leader of the Freedom Front Plus is the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, not of land reform. And we said to President Zuma in the beginning, yes, if you want to appoint him, you must know that we will criticize the government of the day because our mandate is an opposition party,
Okay,
and we
let's
do
let
that.
Mr. Ngwinde finish. Thanks.
No. You know, I just want to deal with some things which are substantive here. I think the professor still is one who's very, very, it makes sense. The professor says the ANC has not used Section 25 of the Constitution. You see, if you rely on the Constitution alone, and you go to court, South African courts will make law for you. Now, yes. Will make law for you. And that is not the role of the judiciary. The role of the judiciary is to interpret law. We must make the law in other words, we must codify Section 25(3) of the Constitution in order for us to enable the Constitutional Court to interpret the law, not to make policy for us. So that is really the weakness in the otherwise sound presentation by the professor.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Gugile Ngwinde is, of course, representing the African National Congress. Well, we're going to take another quick ad break. After the break, we get the parties to make their concluding remarks on this issue.
The following party election broadcast is brought to you in terms of the ICASA regulations governing the election period. The views expressed in this party election broadcast are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
As South Africa's most diverse party, we are committed to fighting corruption and creating jobs for all South Africans. In the Western Cape, we have prioritized basic services to the poor, improved education for all, and created jobs.
Under Presidents Mandela and Mbeki, we saw progress. But under Jacob Zuma's ANC, today there are 1.4 million more unemployed South Africans than there were on the day he took office.
With your help, the DA will bring change to South Africa. Change that brings jobs.
The DA will cut corruption and grow the economy to create 6 million real, permanent jobs. So vote DA and let us show you what we can do, because we're looking forward to working so that South Africa can work.
Together for change, together for jobs. Vote DA.
This party election broadcast was brought to you in terms of the ICASA regulations governing the election period. The views expressed in this party election broadcast are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
Welcome back. This is a debate about the land question. Now, before I ask the panelists to make their concluding remarks, let me come to the PAC, which never got a chance before the break. You were itching, sir.
Yes, very much so. I think generally we are wasting the time when our people are suffering. I mean, people were expecting something out of freedom, and we are not able to give them anything. In 2012, the Union of South Africa made law to take the land and give it to the white community. The parliament did that. It was a political decision. Why our parliament, which has been elected by the majority of our people, is not doing so? There's no will to do so. I mean, this long debate can be ended by a session of parliament, where the parliament decides that people shall be given land and they shall begin to make life. This question of reform, challenging court, is not going to benefit our people. PC is never pursue a policy of land grab.
Okay, you have a very few seconds to tell us why people should vote for the PAC.
People should vote for PAC's liberation movement, very trustworthy. It never betrayed the position of the liberation struggle. Fundamental to the freedom is the question of land. And once you got the land, we'll be able to do social and economic progress and development.
Thank you very much. Dr. Groenewald.
Can I say, firstly,
Your
as I
concluding
said in the
remarks.
beginning, it's a myth to believe that if you have land, you will become rich. And the proof is as follows. 90% of the claimants, as far as restitution is concerned, preferred the money. They didn't take the land. They didn't use the land. They didn't work the land. That is proof. Firstly, we say the Freedom Front Plus is the only party who is fighting for the people to ensure property security in this country. Thank you.
Mr. Mutama, your closing remarks.
So long as we remain a landless majority and our land is in the hands of a minority, they are going to continue to insult us. They are going to, I shudder to think about the farm workers on this man's farm. If he is able to show us this violence on national television, I wonder about in his farm, what black people there were farm workers being treated like. It is only, we have heard today that the willing buyer, willing seller does not work. Even the professor agrees. No one has a proposal except for us, the EFF. Land expropriation without compensation is the answer.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gwindi, your closing remarks. 30 seconds.
Well, South Africans have a choice here. I'm not going to say anything about the Freedom Front Plus. I don't think it's too much of a story. You know, it has got a choice between retaining white privilege as represented by the DA or anarchy in the form of land grabs, which could lead easily to civil war in the country. From PAC and EFF, vote for the African National Congress is progress and stability.
Thank you very much. Advocate, your closing remarks.
Yes. In conclusion, I will say that government must use their powers, and they must use that powers in line with the Constitution. Even if they are challenged in court, they will win if they use it to be in line with the Constitution. And also, when you redistribute the land, you need to empower our people, you educate them, you give them education so that the land can be productive in future.
Thank you very much, Advocate Lufuno. Well, unfortunately, that's all we had time for, and this is where we are going to leave tonight's debate. Thank you very much for watching. Do join us again next week, same time.
Second 5 guys sibalahlela ngama challenges azobonisa ukuthi ubani ophethe iliphi iqembu elihamba phambili.